Let's get back to the wide receiver market, though, because it is really, really interesting, the developments we've had over the course of really the last hour, but overall the last 24 hours. Devante Adams, we've spent all the time on, right? You see it if you're watching on the video stream in the top right corner, BBD, bring back Devante. All three of us, Hunter is kind of a quasi-Packers fan, and Josh and I as Packers fans are all for the Devante Adams and Packers reunion. It makes a ton of sense for the Packers. I don't know if it makes a ton of sense for Devante Adams, but it makes sense. I don't know if it makes the most sense of some of the options he'll have on the open market. The DK Metcalf thing is fascinating.
It's a wrench in our bring back Devante plans.
Yeah, our BBD campaign is certainly hurting right now. Yeah. It's like somebody just took out a Target ad or like an attack ad on us, and it's airing on all the local news stations. Because DK Metcalf, we discussed this a little bit on Friday's show when the initial rumors came out that the Packers were interested in DK Metcalf. I think everybody that's a Packers fan would be A-okay with DK Metcalf joining the Packers. He's a young receiver. He's a number one receiver. He is an upgrade from what you have on the roster currently. The downfall for me when it comes to the DK Metcalf and now the potential of a trade for DK Metcalf is you likely have to trade one of your wide receivers in order to acquire his services. Whereas a guy like Devante Adams, you're just signing him on the open market. You're adding him to the rotation of a Romeo Doubs, a Christian Watson when he's healthy, a Jaden Reed, a Dontavian Wicks, and Devante Adams. If you're going to trade for DK Metcalf, that will then become, it's DK Metcalf, it's Jaden Reed, it's Dontavian Wicks. Romeo Doubs is probably a Seahawk, and we're not going to see Christian Watson until Thanksgiving. That's likely what you're looking at if you go that route. Again, I'd be okay with it. I'd be for it. But it is certainly a predicament that is a little bit different than the Devante Adams one. But now that DK Metcalf has officially requested a trade, and the Seahawks have said, hey, we're going to help you find that, I am starting to think it might no longer be Devante or bust for the Packers. Something that I've been saying for weeks.
I think, first of all, the Corbin who reported it, the Seahawks beat guy, there might be some people in Wisconsin media who owe him an apology because the news was, and the refuted news was, they're going to seek a contract, it'll be fine. For him to come out now and say, no, that means to me, the news he heard about there being potential offers and potential teams interested would tell me that the Seahawks knew this, DK Metcalf knew this, and certainly the Green Bay Packers knew all along there was some level of acrimony or disagreement here that would make him available. The reason I am fine trading a Romeo Doubs is I think Romeo Doubs is done here after this season if we play the longest timeline possible. On top of that, in terms of depth and world without Christian Watson, I think it is an inevitability that the Packers draft a wide receiver in those first 3 rounds.
Agreed.
I think Goody learned the hard way through experience that you need to sort of do what you did with the transition of Driver to Jennings to Jordy to Devante, that DK Metcalf would give you 3-4 years if you were to acquire him and resign him to an extension, and would give you that sort of perfect overlap where we had Jordy and Devante together or Jordy and Greg Jennings together, where one was still improving and getting better and becoming a bigger portion of the offense, but there was like an official sign off. And by the time DK Metcalf is at the end of whatever extension it would be, he would just be more limited in terms of explosion and how often you want to use it. Probably still a weapon because I think he's going to probably transition to one of those guys late in his career that just becomes a red zone target. Big body, can jump still. Can you
freak athlete, right?
Right. You're not going to be asking him to run 9 routes and beat everyone down the field, but he still will be able to be an asset. So it would make a lot of sense. I think the reason I like Devante so much is it is a stopgap, and it does provide you the option of at least 2 years of this. Hopefully, a guy you draft in the early portions of the draft can come in and sort of replace him, but it does limit your timeline, and it does make it riskier, because if that guy you end up drafting in this upcoming draft, that is just 50 days away, by the way, if you miss that guy, then you're sort of back at square one and hopefully we can transition to a new wide receiver one in just a single season. I I think the fact that Goody is reticent. I mean, let's face it. He didn't give Devante a proper contract offer initially because of his age. Because he thought he was on the backside of his career. Now, Goody ended up being wrong, but Goody also ended up getting a first-round pick and a second-round pick for Devante Adams, and just last year, a third-round pick from the Jets to acquire Devante Adams. So they did pretty all right. Things worked out in the Packers' favor that way. It depends what the offer is, because, as you know, it's a double dip, as Chewy has been calling it. You have to give up assets, and you have to re-sign. Now, I think it's informative. The market we saw for Deebo Samuel was just a fifth. Now, they are at different points of their career.
That was the point I was going to make.
But that leads me to believe second or third round pick plus a wide receiver gets it done for a DK.
So let me just ask you this. Is something you are comfortable with trading Romeo Doubs and a third-round pick to Seattle for DK Metcalf? Is that something you'd sign off on?
I slammed the let's do it button instantly. I don't even really think twice. And then I'm
a tad hesitant.
I'd pay DK fair market amount. I don't know what he's getting offered from the Seahawks. I do imagine the team that acquires him will have a pretty good idea, so they'll know beforehand, will we not be able to get an extension done?
Yeah.
I don't think the Packers are in a unique spot where I think their draft capital is minimally valuable as it's ever been to them. Meaning they have so much depth and so many young players that they're going to have to make some decisions on who they can even pay to keep around and who would even be able to be a factor. Like, you can't really add a lot of guys to the linebacker room, to the safety room. You've got room in the offensive line. The defensive line, you got some room. But, like, wide receiver, aside from adding, like, you can add another guy, and that's about it before you start having to make decisions of, is this a practice squad player?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's ultimately going to be the case with some of their draft picks this year, because there's so many guys under contract already where, you know, your 6th-round pick might not make the roster now.
Right. There's not a lot of guys leaving.
No.
And we've seen 2 of them come back, and the kicker...
Brandon McManus and Isaiah McDuffie. Exactly. So on DK Metcalf, and I saw this comment on one of the YouTube channels. A lot coming in right now, obviously. A busy day. So just want to make sure I get the name right here. Michael says, why are people so high on DK? It's several reasons, right? Number one, he's obviously a talented wide receiver. He's a number 1 wide receiver. He's better than anybody the Packers have on the roster. The other part of DK that I think Packers fans need to fall in love with is how durable he is. Mm-hmm. He has played 6 years in the NFL. The least amount of games he's ever played in a season is 15. And that was this year. He played 15 of their 17 games in 2024. 16 games in 23, all 17 in 22 and 21. Played 16 in 2020. I think that was still a 17-game season in 2020. Or was that still a 16-game season? Played 16 that year, played 16 in his rookie year of 2019. So 6 years in the league. Here are his minimum stat lines. Worst in terms of receiving yards he's ever had was 900. That was his rookie year.
He's had best on the Packers.
Right. He has had between 900 and 1,000 yards 3 times, including 992 yards this past year. Was the highest 3-digit receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
The highest amount without reaching that 1,000-yard threshold. He has been over 1,000 yards 3 times, including a 1,300-yard season in 2020 when he was a second-team All-Pro. So 3-time 1,000-yard receiver in 6 years, but has never gone under 900 yards. That's pretty darn impressive for a guy that's been in the league for 6 years. He has had 7, 10, 12, 6, 8, 5 in terms of touchdowns, so a career low this year in touchdown catches. But still, 992 yards, 66 receptions. Has never had less than 58 receptions, which was his rookie year. Has been over 60 every year since. And as I mentioned, he's durable. He's healthy. He doesn't get hurt very often, knock on wood. So that is what makes him appealing, because you look at Christian Watson, who, when he's been on the field, been very talented for the Packers. But that's when he's been on the field. He's dealt with the injuries through his early portions of his career. Romeo Doubs, 2 concussions in 2024 missing some time. And again, when he's been on the field, he's been pretty productive. He's been a nice piece for this Packers offense. But DK Metcalf gives you a bona fide number one option, which is clearly what the Packers desperately need after what happened in 2024. So this option makes sense. Now, what I'm just trying to wrap my brain around is BBD. How do we make it something DK?
BBDK.
Well, not bring, but it wouldn't be bring back.
BIDK?
Yeah, BIDK, bring in DK.
I'm trying to be careful here so I don't acronym myself into something that's inappropriate, but I think we're clear.